sunshine can you fit into one bead mix? We're about to find out. Howdy, I'm Dina. I'm a pharmacist by day, jewelry designer by passion. I'm sharing my journey using all the beads and findings from the June 2025 Southern Shores Magical Mystery Box. Today's project, we're diving into the Sunshine and Saltwater mix to make 3 pairs of earrings and a necklace full of bright summer energy. So let's get started, y'all. Start off with the Sunshine and Saltwater component. We're going to make 3 pairs of earrings. Then we'll come back and we'll make a necklace with the remaining beads that are in here. So we're going to start off with this robin's egg looking earring, and then we're going to do the yarn ball, maybe. We'll call it the yarn ball earring, and then we'll do the drop earring after that. So I'm going to move all the extras off to the side at the moment. We'll start off with the robin's egg earring. Alright, get all those off to the side. So this one is going to be just a very simple thread and needle. The first 2 are going to be very similar to each other. So I'm using white thread on this, just because that's what I have as spare thread at the moment. So I need to get my bead out. I forgot to get that out. Kind of hard to do it without beads. Alright, so I'm going to go through the large bead first, and then just come out the other side. Just leave a little bit of room so you can hold on to the thread as a comfortable amount. Pick up one of your 8-ohs, go back through the robin egg, because it really does look like a robin's egg, other than the gold splashes. And then pick up your other 8-oh, and then we're going to go back through. And we're just going to put another strand of thread through our seed beads here. So we're going to go back through the 8-oh, back down towards the starter thread, go through the 8-oh on the starter thread side, and now you have 2 thread paths through your 8-ohs on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and tie off here. So this is pretty simple. It's another one of those that I like to do when I have just thread that's left over from projects. Just get out a couple of really simple looking beads and just use that thread up. And then other times my extra thread I will use for designing other project ideas before I actually come and make a video on it. Make sure that the ideas actually work. Now before I burn off, I want to make sure that my 8-ohs are sitting in a good position. And just like that. And then we'll burn off. And just make sure when you're burning down not to burn through any of your working threads. And then this one. Alright, so this side, the knot actually ended up very close to inside the bead itself. So if that happens, I'm probably going to use, this is the side that has the knot looking like it's almost on the inside of the bead. So I'm probably going to let that be the drop side. That'll be the bottom side of the earring. So I'll use this as the top side. So as long as the jump rings go through the top side, then we'll be fine with that. Now I have 3 4mm jump rings, and that's only so I can give it a little bit of sway. And then open up your jump ring, put your pliers on one side of the opening, put another set of pliers on the other side, and twist it open. So we're going to go through the 8-oh first, and as long as the jump ring goes through the 8-oh, because these are Duracoat, so sometimes they're going to be a little bit more difficult to get through. If that's the case, try switching your jump rings out first. If you're not able to get through the bead, sometimes switching the sides like this works just as fine. Yep, see, it worked just good just for me to switch the other side. And then it goes through just fine after that. But those are some options for you. switch side of your jump ring. If your jump ring is still not working, then go ahead and switch the jump ring. If it's still not working, then it may be too clogged to be able to use a jump ring. If you have thinner jump rings, that would be another option. I'm just closing up this jump ring right now. Then we're going to add a third jump ring, and then we'll add the ear wire on top of that one, of the third one. So I'm just twisting these open and closed, just like that. I know you're seeing the up and down version at the moment, but this is what it looks like so far. And get this one open, and then we'll put our ear wire on. And these are just kidney ear wires that I had. I happen to have 3 pairs left of this set. And this is just from my stash, so I decided to go ahead and use these. That way they're all kind of coordinating together, since they're all coming from the same little component set. And then now, when you get the other one done, you have a cute pair of little robin's egg earrings. So there is the first set. So meet me back and we'll go through the second set. Alright, so for earring number 2, it's going to be a similar concept. So we're going to start off with, I think I went through this first. Okay, so we're going to start off with our little yarn beads, basically. This is the one that has a little bit darker yellow, so I want to make sure that the 2 darker yellows are in the same side, and then the lighter colored yellowed ones I'm going to put at the top, and then the blues are going to be facing each other. So we're going to go through this bead, and just to let you know that they when they were making these beads, they did use glue on it, so sometimes you're going to get glue on your needle. If you end up getting glue on the tip of the needle, it usually can just come off. If you just rub it really good like this, just make sure you don't poke yourself, but just rub it really good like this and it can come off. If it's still having issues coming off, then get like a alcohol swipe or alcohol swab, and then that should be able to get it off for you. And then we're going to pick up one of these crystal rondelles that came in this little kit, or this little portion. Then we're going to pick up our second little yarn bead, going through the blue and having the yellow, the light yellow on the top. We're going to pull these down to where you have a good amount to be able to hold on to down at the bottom, right there. Then we're going to pick up a bead cap, going through the bead cap in the corrected direction, so it sits up on top. And then we'll pick up our 8-0. So we're going to use turquoise 8-0s in this one. Oh Lord, that was a really bad hit. I'm sorry. Okay. Now we're going to go back down the beads again, so we're going to skip that 8-0. And this is where it can get a little bit difficult as far as making sure you're going back through the holes of the yarn beads. Because of the glue and everything. So just try your best to get back down the hole, because we're going to go through this a couple of times. I found that once I got it started after this portion, it was a little bit easier to finish it off. I like to go back through it, since they were all pretty tight to each other, it was easier to go through. So we're going to pick up the other bead cap, your other 8-0, and see, I have glue on the end of it now. And then we're going to go back through the beads and put that second thread path through your 8-0s like we did similar with the other one. Okay, there we go. My needle is just long enough to be able to go through everything and have just a little bit left over so I can pull on it. If you need to, you can always readjust with your other thread down here too. I'm already through that 8-0, so I'm going to go back through the beads, and I'm going to come out in between the yarn bead. I'm trying to find that hole. It's easier with the other one. There we go. I'm going to come out before the yarn, or just after the yarn bead, but before that bead cap. So I'm kind of moving the bead cap over a little bit to allow the needle to be able to go through a little easier. And then that's where I'm going to tie off. Oh wait, no, hold on. I forgot to go through a second thread path. So we do need to go through that bead cap. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, go through the bead cap, go through the seed bead, get your second thread path through there, then go back through the bead cap, and don't go back through the other beads. This is where you're going to tie off. So make sure that I'm not catching on to any of the yarn from the bead. Okay, I don't think I am. So this is where we're going to tie off now. And just a simple little right over left, left over right, just like we did on the first set of earrings. And then on this one, when you go to burn off the ends, you want to burn off to where you're close to that bead cap. But when you get to a point where you burn the ball, try to make a little ball of the thread, pull your bead cap back some, so that way you can get down underneath the bead cap, but not burn the yarn. So that's probably the most difficult part of this earring, is to making sure that you're burning just the thread and not the yarn of the ball. There we go. So this is going to be my top, that's going to be my bottom. So now we can move the thread off to the side. This one I decided to use just 2 jump rings. It was just, I just wanted a little bit of movement with this earring. I didn't want a whole lot of movement, but I also wanted a little bit of separation in between the bead and the ear wire itself. So that's why I chose to do 2 jump rings. And they're little 4mm jump rings again. And then close that one up. Open up your second one. The sun is shining like crazy. It's bouncing off some of the bead tubes I have off to the side here. Add your ear wire. And then now you have a second pair of earrings, and these are the little yarn ball earrings. So meet me back, we'll make our third pair of earrings with the little drops. Alright, so for our third pair of earrings that we're going to make today, we're going to need a head pin of some sort. Just make sure that the head pin is large enough to be able to fit around the hole of your bead, so it's not small and it doesn't go straight through. So just make sure that's the only thing that you have to worry about, and because that'll be for this bead down here. Then we're also going to need some 22 gauge wire, and I just chose 22 gauge just because that's what I have on hand at the moment. So we are going to make 2 links. We're going to make one with the top drop and one with the drop in the center. So I'm going to keep everything on the spool, but I'm going to roll some of the spool out some so it's easy to work with, and then just warm it up in your fingers. Just move it back and forth a couple of times until it feels like it's a little bit more looser to be able to work with. And try not to hit the camera with it. Did that almost twice now. Okay, so we're going to put the drop on first. So I'm going to put the drop on where we go through the bottom portion of it, and the larger portion or the bottom portion of the drop first. Then we're going to put the red drop on, but we're going to put this one on upside down. So we're going to go through the smaller portion, and the top portion is going to be at the top this time. Or the bigger portion is going to be at the top. Alright, so let's see if I can do this twice in a row. So about 2 inches down or so from the top, somewhere around in there, we're going to make a bend. So just bend your wire over your pliers. So it makes a little 90-degree angle. Now this is how I measure my loops and try to make them about the same. I put my round nose pliers onto the wire. I put the bead up close to the round nose pliers, and then I try to move the pliers back and forth, left and right, until they are sitting that the open end, or the smallest end, the left-hand side of the pliers is sitting up against the left-hand side of the bead. So that's how I measure my my loops, to make sure that they're going to be similar in size. So now what you want to do is you just want to wrap your wire up over your pliers, open up your pliers so you can wrap them around this way, and then change jaws. So now your wire's on the bottom and not at the top anymore. Then take your working wire and finish out that loop. So that way when you're done, you have a loop that looks like that. So on the top loops, we're going to go ahead and finish these loops out. The bottom loops we're going to leave open. So for the top loop, grab onto your loop with your pliers. You can use a second set of pliers if you need to, but all we're going to do here is wrap around 2 or 3 times until you're happy with the wraps. And I typically go pretty slow on this part because I'm still pretty new at doing wraps. So I want to make sure that they look nice. And there's a couple of wraps on this one that don't look all that great, but that's okay because we're still learning. And flush cut our flush side towards the product. Cut that part off, and then we want to tuck this back in. You always want to try to tuck in the ending portion so that way it doesn't stick out and everything, and then that's where you can kind of readjust if you need to. Make sure that your loops are looking the way that you want. Get that straightened out a little bit, and then we're going to move our bead up to the loop. Now we're going to measure out how much that we're going to need to be able to make the loop down on the bottom. So I'm going to do 3 finger widths. So then take flush side towards your item and cut that portion off. Oops, and lose your bead. Put the bead back on there. And then we're going to... Alright, so my camera ran out of space, so we're going to go back to this. So we were at the point where we need to know where to flip over our wire over our pliers so we know, so we can make our loop on the bottom side. And like I said in the last clip that ran out of space, we want to make sure that we leave this loop open, and then we'll wrap it after we attach everything. So I'm putting my pliers to where the left hand side is up against or just about the same length, or what's the best way of putting this? Okay, so the left hand side of the pliers is basically the same, lining up with the left hand side of the bead. That's the best way of putting it. Left hand side of the pliers is lining up with the left hand side of the bead. And then that's where I flip my wire over the pliers. That's probably the best way of saying that. Alright, then you get your round nose pliers, do the same thing, line the left hand side up of the pliers with the left hand side of the bead, and then that's where you know you can flip your wire up over the top of the pliers, open your jaw, switch it to where it's on the bottom of the jaw now, and then continue on with the rounding. And that was not the best of roundings. There we go. Straighten it up a little bit. So my wire went a little bit past 90 degrees, but that's okay. We will work with that. So that is the first one done. So now we can move on to the second one, which is our little teardrop form, or pear-shaped form. So I'm just warming up the wire again because it's been a few minutes because I had to get everything off my camera. And I'm just going about 2 inches down. Doesn't really matter at this point in time. You just need some room to work with, so you can do some wrapping, because this will be the top of the bead again. So we're going to do that and get our round nose pliers, line up the left hand side of the pliers to the left hand side of the bead. That's where you know you're going to flip your wire over, change your plier or your jaws, and continue that round to the back. And then this is the top of the bead, so we're going to continue our wrapping. So we're going to wrap 2 or 3 times, just whatever you feel like you want to do. There we go. That's looking pretty good. And you might hear vacuuming in the background. My husband is starting to do some cleaning, making me feel bad that I'm in here working on videos and not helping him clean. Then we're going to pitch this down and straighten that up a little bit. Push our bead up to the top. Measure 3 finger widths down, flush side towards the product. Cut that off. Try not to lose your bead this time. Move the wire off to the side because we are done with the wire. The last one we're going to do is going to be with that head pin. Jump pin. What is a jump pin? I don't know. Okay, lining up the left hand side of the pliers with the bead. Left hand side of the bead, pushing over. This is the one that we're going to need to leave open so we can add. And then putting left hand side of the round nose pliers up against the left hand side of the bead, going up and over, changing the jaws, and then continuing the roundness. Now if our loops are in the wrong positions, we will fix that at the very end. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Last thing we're going to do is use our head pin, put our bead on to where the bigger side of our drop bead is down on the bottom. We're going to do the same process. Get your chain nose pliers out, line up the left hand side of the pliers to the left hand side of the bead. I can probably go just slightly more. And then just make sure you're up against the bead, and then push your head pin over the pliers again. Same thing with the round nose, line it up. Somewhere around in there. Go up and over. Change your jaws. Continue the loop. This is the top of our loop, so we can go ahead and finish this loop off. Alright, now with the head pin I had a little bit more problems. My rounding was a little bit off. So this may be a little bit more difficult for you as well. If that's the case, you can always use a second pair of pliers. I think I'm going to... should I do it one more time, or should I just leave it? I think I'll just leave it, and then I'll squish those together a little bit better. So this little drop will have a little bit more of a room compared to the other drop, because the other drop was pretty tight up against the bead, because I had not quite done my loop pretty enough, basically. So now I'm going to try to get up underneath the coil and just kind of squish it together a little bit. And in doing so, that means that you're going to have to kind of tuck that end in of the wire again. So I'm holding on to the loop with my fingernail and my other finger, and then I'm using the pliers and trying to go around to tuck in that last little part so it doesn't stick out. Okay, so it's not a horrible loop. It's not the best loop, but that's okay. Alright, so now we're in assembly mode. So this is the bottom of the earring. So we're going to put this on the middle part, which is going to be our pear drop. So you slide that on, to the little loop down there. Hold on with your chain nose pliers. It's usually a little easier to use chain nose on this portion of it, especially if you have smaller loops, because a chain nose has that more of a tip to it, so it's easier to hold on to. And then we're just going to finish this. Do the same thing. We're going to wrap around 3 or 4 times. And try not to wrap around your loops more than once. And then flush cut side towards the product. Put your excess off to the side. I have a little jar that I fill my excess pieces of wire with, that eventually I'll either throw it away, or I can use it for decoration too. I have a second jar that I have like broken beads and seed beads and other beads that don't have holes in them and stuff like that. I have another jar that I do the same thing with. And there goes the vacuum again. Okay, now we're going to add our top portion to the earring in the same fashion. I'm going to move this wire back a little bit, which is going to kind of mess up a little bit of that roundness, but it'll still work out okay. Okay, so now we're going to move this around, and we're going to twist a couple of times, 3 or 4 times. You want a little bit of movement with your earrings. You don't want a whole lot of movement. So if you don't want a whole lot of movement, then make it a little bit tighter to the bead. If you want a little bit of movement like what I do, then making it a little bit looser is not a bad thing either. And then tuck that in whenever I get to. There we go. There's the end. So tuck that portion in. Now we're to the point where we need to add this to our earwing. So I'm getting 2 pliers out, my chain nose, my flat nose, opening up a jump ring, and then I'm going to fix everything if I need to here in a minute. Sometimes I get lucky and I get everything correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the ear wire, which on the previous earring I realized after I had finished that clip that the ear wire had come off. Apparently I opened it, or used an open one, and so I fixed that already. So that's fixed if somebody noticed that. Alright, so I want this top drop to face like this. I want the loops to be not facing me. So see how this one is going in this direction, but this one is facing you down here? So we need to switch the bottom one to where it is facing away from you. So I'm going to hold the top one and the bottom one, and then I'm going to twist. I probably should have done this before I added the jump ring and everything, but you can still get it to work. So you just twist it until they are sitting in the direction that you want. So now you have your top drop where your loops are facing away from you. The next drop, I want the loops facing me. So I've got both of them pretty much facing me. This one down here just needs to be straightened in this way. It's a little wonky like that, so we're just going to straighten that up. It's 22 gauge wire, so it moves pretty easily with your hands sometimes. So the middle drop, you have both loops facing you, and then this one, it just dangles however which way it wants to. So now I'm happy with that, and I have a finished set, 3rd pair of earrings out of this portion of the box. So meet me back and we will do our necklace that goes along with this. Alright, so let's get started with the necklace portion. So I've got all the beads laid out the way that I want, and these are the remaining beads that were in the Sunshine and Saltwater little package, this little guy. So it's the remaining of these beads. And then I've got a bunch of crystal 8-Os here in the center that you can kind of see the pile, but of course they're crystals, so they're kind of hard to see. But I'm using crystals so that way the turquoise color soft flex wire that I'm going to use will shine through the crystal beads. So you'll still be able to see it. Now with these, this one is a nice ceramic bead, and it's pretty hefty, and it's got a nice huge hole there. So we're going to actually use 2 strands of our beading wire, but I'm not exactly sure how long I want to make it yet. So I'm just going to string everything on with 1 strand, figure out the length that I'm going to want, and then I'll cut a second strand, and then after I get both of those done, then I'll add seed beads on either end, because I'm pretty sure we're going to need some more length and everything after we get these guys on. And I'll put some seed beads on either end so that way you can still see the wire, but there you still have seed beads too. And then in between most of these, we're going to put an 8-O in between most. Now this is another one that has a very large hole to it, so we're going to have to do some extra seed beads that will go the length of this bead also, so that way it'll stay on the wire the right way. So I have just a bunch. I'm leaving the wire on the spool, and I have just a large amount sitting out here, and I'm just going to start stringing on beads. I'm going to go ahead and start with an 8-O, and then pick up one of the oval crystals, and an 8-O, pick up our robin's egg. So these are the other 2 robin's eggs that were in the kit. 8-O, another oval crystal, and 8-O. Now this combination, we're going to pick up the turquoise rondelle, then we'll pick up the rhinestone spacer, and then we're going to pick up the beaded bead, basically. This looks like it was maybe resin. It could have been clay too, but it's got like a silver washer there on either side, but it's just 11-O seed beads that they glued down to it. So we need to make sure also that we put seed beads in between. So the 1 seed bead that's sitting on in between this bead and our middle beads here, we'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see that spacing. So I'm just I picked up 5 crystal beads so far, and I'm holding it up against the bead, and it still is a little too small, so I think I might pick up 2 more. So that would be 7 crystal 8-Os, and hold it up and make sure that it's going to be about the same width as the bead that you're trying to go through, and it looks that way, so I think we're going to be safe with that. So remember, this is going to be your bead right here. This is going to be the one section. Rather than just doing 1 single bead, we're going to do 1 large group like that. So I put 7 of the 8-Os in between, or underneath the beaded bead, basically. And so I'm going to add our next bead, our next 8-O, to space these guys out. Then we're going to put our bead cap on. We're going to put the big guy on, and then the bead cap on the other side. So that'll be the middle of the necklace. Then we're going to put our 1 8-O for in between in between this portion of it and the next. Now we have to add our 7 8-Os to go underneath or inside this beaded bead. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So pick up your beaded bead, your rhinestone spacer, and your turquoise rondelle. Then pick up another of your 8-Os, and these got mixed up. So pick up a oval crystal, an 8-O, your last robin's egg, an 8-O, and an oval crystal. And then end with an 8-O because that's what we started with. So now, after I get everything strung, now it's all coming together, something similar to that. So if you like the way this looks, then you can continue on with me. And I think we're okay. The only thing I'm looking at is this little section right here. There's not a lot of length in between those two. So, oh, one of the beads came off. That's going to happen every once in a while too. So I think, should I add, this is design on the fly big time. Okay, so I think I'm going to add maybe 3 more beads to that, because I want to have a little bit of space in between those two. So let's go ahead and take these guys off. So we can add 3 more beads, and hopefully that'll give it a little bit more space in between the center portion. So now I'm just going to go back and string these guys on, and I'm using 8/0s because I know for sure that an 8/0 should be able to handle, we'll put it that way, it should be able to handle 2 thread paths of your wire. Maybe a little tight, but it can work. So, alright, so there's the extra 3, and then we're going to pick up all the extra beads again. So we did 7 in between here. So there's the 1, so really it's 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Because we had the 1 in the original portion, and then we had the 7 underneath, and I changed it to an extra 3 that I added in between. So now I'm just stringing the beads back on. Then we're going to check it and see what it looks like again. So I'm doing the same pattern that I just did, and check that. Then I'll break away if I like it and let you get caught up with the pattern. And in doing so, I'll figure out how long I want to make this and how many beads I'm going to add, and so on and so forth, so you don't have to watch me string on everything all at once. Alrighty, so that makes that move around a little bit more. That makes that move around a little bit more. Okay, I think I'm happy with that, because that way you have a little bit of movement down there at the bottom. Alright, so there you go. So there is our pattern that we're going to use for this portion. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and break away, figure out how long I want this to be and how many beads I'm going to add, and I'm going to measure twice and cut once, unlike I did with the other necklace that I did a couple of videos ago. And then I'll come back and show you what I end up having. So I'll meet you back in a second. Alright, so I held the necklace up to myself and figured out exactly where I wanted it to sit. And what I came up with is that I'm going to need to add 6 inches worth of seed beads on each side. So it'll be 6 inches on this side and then 6 inches on the other side. It's about 12 of your 8/0s per inch on the Miyuki seed beads, so I ended up adding 72 of my 8/0s on this side. Now, what I ended up doing after that is just holding the 2 ends together of the wire and make sure that it was in the center, and then I just cut off at that point. Now, to add your second strand, I went ahead and measured just about the same length of wire, just holding it up, holding one end up and then measuring it out that way and then cutting off. And the reason why I'm coming back right away is that I want to show you that sometimes it is a little bit difficult to get through these 8/0s a second time. So more than likely when we get back over here to this side, I will end up having more than likely 2 strands of our 6 inches of 8/0s, and I'll just go back through this last one right here because that's going to be part of the middle portion of the necklace. Then I'll go add a second strand of our 72 beads on this side. So hopefully I have enough. I'm pretty sure I do, but so I wanted to come back and show you that sometimes it's a little bit difficult. So I have just that extra strand just hanging out, and I'm just threading back through each one of these beads before I add the beads on the other end of the necklace to make it just a little bit easier. So I'm just going through an 8/0 and then whatever bead is sitting next in line, and then move that down, go through an 8/0, because some of the 8/0s it's going through just, you know, pretty easily, and the others I have to kind of wiggle it through a little bit. And this is the portion that I'm a little concerned about because we added so many 8/0s right here in this part. So we want to make sure that we're going through each and every one of these and that we're not skipping any of them. So I'm just going to move these 8/0s through. I think I have one stuck in there. I do have a couple stuck in there actually. Okay, I think that's it. Yep, okay. So now when you get to the section where we have a lot of 8/0s in between the two beads, then you may need to just take it just a couple at a time. You know, 1 or 2 at a time. And just wiggle each time that you go through it, especially if it's starting to get a little tight. And then just go through a couple of your beads. So it's similar if you use thread and needle and your bead is starting to get filled up with thread and everything. It's a similar type of fix where you just go through and you just wiggle your needle through. So it's the same thing with the wire. Just kind of wiggle it. So I wanted to come back and show that it's going to be a little tight, but you can get through those beads. So then that's what you would do on this next step, is just string on all the way to the other side, go back through that first bead here with your second strand, and then after that, then add a second complete strand of 72 beads on this side. Once you're done with that, then you can actually finish off the other side of your necklace. So after you get all that done, meet me back and I'll show you the next step to complete. Alright, so now I've got all of my beads strung on, and I've got 2 strands through the center portion, and then I've got my 72 beads on each strand of the beads on the back side of the necklace, or the side in the back. So now it's time to add the crimp tube. So these beads, if you haven't noticed, they are going to have a little bit of space in between them. I want that. I want it to sit like this on the neck and not bowed out like this, because if you make them too tight, they're going to bow out. So they are going to move some. If that bothers you, then you can always leave these seed beads off and just have the 2 strands going through and finish off the necklace without any beads over here. I just wanted to add the seed beads just to kind of keep it fluent, that you see the seed beads in between everything, and then you'll see them up here at the top too. So I want to make sure that I have enough room to be able to have those beads move around. Now I have quite a bit left on this side of the necklace, and I have very little left over here. So I want to try to use, I've already practiced it once over here, that's why it's all bent. But I want to use a less amount of wire over here, so I have plenty of room over on the other side to be able to do the crimping on the other side too. So we're going to put our crimp tube on. Now, like I said, I've already practiced it, so I kind of know where my loop is going to be, which is actually not leaving a whole lot of space, so I may make it a little bit smaller than that. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that your wires are straight and that you don't have them crossing over into your crimp tube, because we're going to loop one of these wires over and create a third pass through the crimp tube in order to make a loop so we can connect our findings and everything at the end. So I'm going to move this all the way up and then leave just a little bit of room. So that's probably, we'll do a little bit more than that. So about an inch. Usually your between your first and second knuckle on your index finger is around about an inch. So that's usually what I use. Now I'm going to take one of the wires and I'm going to flip it back through the crimp tube, trying to keep the crimp tube in that same position, but then also leave enough room to where you can get the wire back through the crimp tube and move it through that way. Let me grab my chain nose pliers, grab on it that way, and there we go. So now I have just a little loop there at the end, and then changing it in my hand so it's a little bit easier to hold on to. So that's what it looks like. And then put your crimp tube in the middle of your magical crimpers and then squish down. Should make a little flattened disc like that. Turn it 90 degrees, middle of the pliers, and squish. Turn it a little bit, squish, a little bit, squish. Continue to do that until you don't feel any more resistance. And when that is the case, you have a nice little ball of crimp. And I'm using silver crimps on this one, even though there's gold findings and everything, just because I'm running out of my gold ones. I don't have very many of those left. So now we're going to, tug test. Always want to check, make sure it's on there good and everything. Tug test first. Now we're going to cut off the excess. So make sure you're cutting off the excess and not your actual project. That would be sad. No, I need to change these pliers out. In fact, I'm going to do that now. These are the pliers that have a spot in the middle of them that I messed up when I used some stainless steel cutters or wire on one of my other projects. Alright, so now I'm going to move the beads down carefully so they all kind of slide and get to the other end. And then I'm going to make sure that I still have enough room for my beads to move around and be somewhat fluent, because look how tight these are down here now, and see how it's kind of bowing out some. That's what I'm trying to not happen. So I want to make sure that they have enough room to be able to move around and everything. And it could be that one of the wires is just tight, and I think that's probably what it is that one of the wires is tight at the moment. So how do you fix that? Let's see. Let's see if we can figure out which wire it is. I think it's this one. Yep, that's it. Okay. So there we go. And then this one. Okay, now it's kind of evened out a little bit. Alright, make sure this is still looking the way that I want it. I think I want to loosen it up just a little bit. Nose. It sounded like a pot just fell to the floor. Okay. I know I'm fiddling with this a lot and everything, but I just want it to kind of sit the way I want. It's kind of twisting some, and that's bothering me, but it may be one of those happy little mistakes that just, it looks nice afterwards. Okay, so that is kind of still bowing a little bit, but there again, it may be one of those things that I'm just going to have to live with. Okay, so I think I'm okay with that. I forgot I could do this too. I can twist it and make sure that they're still tight, but not too tight, to where these don't work the way that I want it to. Alright, so I have plenty of room down here. Didn't think I was going to have that much room. Alright, so now everything is twisted to the way that I like. That looks kind of cool, actually. Alright, so you're going to have a little bit of bowing there. That is okay. I'll live with it. Alright, I'm going to take off the second little bead stopper there. And then now this one should be a little bit easier as far as putting the crimp tube on. So go ahead and put it on both strands of the wire again. Make sure that the wire is not crossing over at all. And I think I'll do about right in there. So I'm just leaving a little bit of room again. So that way I can have movement in the necklace and all. So if I have to straighten out this side of the necklace, if that ends up getting too tight, then I have a little bit of room that I can move my beads around and everything and get it into the tightness that I like and want. So taking one of the wires, going back through, gonna make the loop just about the same size as the other loop. You can always do a double check. It's gonna be pretty close. So then we're going to put this inside the magical crimpers, crimp down, and then finish the crimp on this guy. And then pray that this works. My first necklace that I did, if you have not seen it yet, it will be linked. That video will be linked in the description below. But I did mess up on my length of my necklace that I wanted. So I had to go back and fix it and actually add chain to it because I made it way too short. It was like a choker and I was trying to make it just a little bit shorter than this necklace, the length of this necklace. And this one's going to be about a 22-ish inch necklace or so, 22, 23 inch, something like that. And I was shooting for that for the other necklace, and yeah, it didn't work out. So now I'm cutting off the excess. Now these long strands that you have left over, keep those, because you can always use that in other projects where you're needing an extra little bulk of wire, and then that way you'll have some extras laying around. Okay, so I'm just looking at the beads, seeing how they're sitting, and then once you wear this and everything, that'll kind of loosen up over time. So the twisting and the way that it's kind of bowing out just a little bit on one strand compared to the other, after you wear the necklace for a little bit, that will go away after some time. So keep these long strands. I'll probably keep that one too. This one's almost too small. But keep the other ones in a little baggie, and then that way you can use those for a future project. And I think I'm going to go ahead and finish off the necklace right away. So grab my 2 sets of pliers so I can add my jump rings. I got my little 4mm jump rings, and I'm doing like a mixture of metals here. And this one's antique copper, or antique brass, sorry, antique brass color. I'll go ahead and put my lobster clasp over here on this side. And you can always add your lobster to the loop before you close off the loop too, with the crimp tube. You can always add it that way too if you wanted to. I just like to use jump rings so that way when I go to sell my items, if somebody wants something a little bit longer, I can always add a extender chain a lot easier if I have jump rings on already. And then I'm just going to double check this jump ring and make sure it's completely closed, because sometimes they kind of, I don't know if you can see that or not, how it's kind of slightly open a little bit. So I'm just going to wiggle it a little bit, make sure it's closed good. And then now you have a, whoops, completed project necklace number 4. We'll get the earrings out because these are part of project number 4 also. And these earrings, these guys at least, can go with the necklace really well. And then we have our little drop earrings that we did too. So this is the completion of, if I can get it to sit right, there we go. There is the completion of project number 4. If you enjoyed this video, but you're looking for more inspiration, I have a playlist down in the description below, so click on that and get yourself inspired. Don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so you'll get notified when I come out with my next video. I'll see y'all in that next one, everyone. Bye now.